Welcome to the Fantasy Think. I'm Jared Quartermatch, and today it is time for the monthly update, the October update 2024. And wow, September was a pretty good reading month for me, I gotta say. So let's get right into it. But first, I had a couple more wildlife incursions on my in my yard here. So I'm gonna first we had a invasion of turkeys. So that was pretty interesting, and during all these things, we have to keep the dog inside. Um, and then we had an invasion of blackbirds, which was interesting. These little invasions just seem to sweep through the yard if they're there for you know an hour or so, and then they move along. So you can tell it's fall, it's autumn, and it's starting to things are starting to change out there in the world of wildlife. Yeah. So, with that said, we will get into what I read in September, starting with the big one, Trader's Knot by Janie Wirtz. I finished this book with my read along, my friends at pagechewing.com, and I gotta say, this was another spectacular entry into the Wars of Light and Shadow. This is book 7, and it's the 4th book in the Alliance of Light story arc. And I actually really like this big trade paperback. I wish I had all of them like this, but yeah. So next after this, we'll be moving on to Storm the Fortress, which would be the final book in the Story of Light story arc, and I'm very excited for that. So excellent as always, Trader's Knot. What else did I finish here? I also completed Tigana by Guy Gabriel Kay. This was my first foray into the works of Kay, and I can say that I was very pleased by what I read. I really liked it. I enjoyed it. It had this really classical fantasy feel um, with a little bit of the trappings of medieval Italy thrown in there. So it was a very enjoyable read for me, and I look forward to more K stuff in the future. All right, I also finished Children of Memory by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I thought this book was a fantastic capstone for what was a trilogy. I think is going to be another book now written, but I really enjoyed this book much more than the second one, and I had a good time reading it. And of course, we're reading this. We read this on the podcast Speculative Speculations, so check out that podcast when you get a chance to hear our full discussion from week to week as we went through Children of Memory. Good time there. I also finished the fantastic novel called Spear by Nicola Griffith. Um, Nicola Griffith. And wow, I was taken by surprise by this book. I did a full review on it, so check that out when you get a chance. And I really enjoyed this unique take on some aspects of the Arthurian legend, and it was really different, really neat. It was nice and short, but very poetical and quite deep. And so I enjoyed the heck out of that book, Spear. Probably my book of the month last month. Um, I also finished The Demolished Man by Alfred Bester. This was part of our Sci-Fi Masterworks read along on pagechewing.com, and it was a good time. In Bester style, he's the one who wrote what was the name of that book? It'll come to me. But Styles My Destination. Yeah, that's what he wrote. And this book, The Demolished Man, was done in the same style, and it was quick-paced, fast, energetic, idea-based science fiction from the 50s, and it was pretty good stuff. Next, I read this little gem here, The Man Who Risked His Partner by, recognize that name? Stephen R. Donaldson. Yes, that's right. Um, this was his foray into detective fiction, noir crime type stuff. And I gotta say, Donaldson, of course, is known for his epic fantasies, the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, and other stuff like the Gap Cycle science fiction series and Morden's Need duology and the Great Gods War trilogy, and a whole bunch of short stories and essays, and all fantasy based. And if you've never read Donaldson before and you picked up this, you would think he was a seasoned detective noir crime writer, because this was truly fantastic detective fiction. He had the tone down, the voice down. It was like reading Philip Marlowe. It was like reading Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler, all that stuff, and it was a joy to read. It was like a left turn from what I'm usually read on here, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'm looking to hopefully pick up the other books in this series. There's 4 books that he wrote. As detective fiction, originally written under the name Reed Stevens, but then when it was republished later on, they of course put Donaldson's name back on it by Forge Books. So great stuff. Uh, what else did I read? I also read or reread V for Vendetta by Alan Moore and David Lloyd. I read this for the Books Undone podcast, and we're going to be having a full discussion on that podcast um, when I think in a couple days here. So once again, I reacquainted myself with V for Vendetta, and that was always a joy. I like reading Alan Moore's stuff, and very interesting on a reread. I think I got a little more out of it, so that's pretty cool. I also read a self-published book called Dreamer Awake. This is a novella written by our friend Liam Hall from Liam's Lyceum. If you haven't checked out his channel, go ahead and do so, and you will see he does a ton of reviews on his channel. He does some other cool essay stuff too. That was a pretty cool novella. It very very sword and sorcery style, and a kind of a revenge tale too. So it was pretty cool. I liked it. It was very interesting, effort by Liam to get his writing out there, and I congratulate him on that. It's available on Amazon. Dreamer Awake, and so that's um, all the larger stuff I read. But of course, I still keep up with reading short stories, and so I read another entry out of Tales Before Tolkien. This one was called The Dragon Tamers by E. Nesbit. And this was something that, kind of influenced the way that Tolkien might have viewed dragons, maybe. This one was kind of amusing. It was interesting. And it was basically a dragon comes up in this blacksmith's dungeon, and he tricks it into being chained down, and he feeds it, and then there's a bunch of stuff happens where he has a trick it again, and there's bags of gold involved, and then they end up feeding the dragon, let's see bread and milk, and eventually they let the dragon go after feeding it only bread and milk, and the dragon turns into a cat. So it's kind of funny stuff. Yes, another interesting tale from Tales Before Tolkien. Uh, that's funny, and of course, I'm also reading short stories based upon out of the Big Book of Science Fiction for the podcast Speculative Speculation. So please check out those short stories. They're all really interesting or cool in some way or another, because it is basically the history of science fiction that we're going through in the big book of science fiction. For speculative speculation, it's very good stuff. And I also read another, another short story out of what's it called again? It's called Swords and Dark Magic. And this collection here, I read a story called The Undefiled, yeah, by Greg Keyes. And this was a very cool short story. I thought it involves a character named Fool Wolf, Fool Wolf, Wolf. All right, and this character I ran into before. It was in a fantasy novel called The Waterborn, by Greg Keyes, and The Black God by Greg Keyes, a kind of a duology. Um, and so this, I was familiar with this character, and I was actually quite pleased to get back to him. He's an interesting character. He's kind of possessed by this powerful god spirit that wants him to do atrocious things, and he has to resist that possession. But of course, situations arise where it might be to his advantage to let it out. So and this short story was right along those lines, and written very, very well by Greg Keyes. And I forgot how much I enjoyed his writing. It's pretty cool stuff. And of course, I read another little folk tale out of Chinese Myths and Folk Tales. This nice Barnes and Noble edition here, and this this particular this little folk tale, short here, was called Miss Chiao No. And it's one of these really strange folk tales where that barely involves these situations where this man has to make a decision, and he has to um, he encounters like these weird fox people, but it's so off the cuff and like weird. He just like he goes, he has a situation where he runs into this fox person, and the fox person offers him something. He goes, no, no, thanks. I'm just gonna go back to my village. And the fox guy just runs off and goes, okay. And they kind of just shrug and they keep going. And it, these some of these folk tales are really well, they're interesting. They're strange, and they don't always make the a lot of sense, but there's some little inkling of a lesson in there in each one of these things. And it's just amusing how they spend a sentence or two just saying, oh, and then he went to this kingdom and that kingdom was destroyed, and then he went to the next kingdom, and like there's no build up for it or anything like that. And then he came back home and he lived happily ever after. It's just amusing stuff. I like amusing myself with some of these little folk tales sometimes. All right, so I think that's everything I've read in the month of September. Besides, the short, small piles of comics and other stuff, including I got this neat little package in the mail, a little birthday gift to myself. Um, I got the for those of you interested in role playing games, I got the Castles and Crusades starter kit, and I could not be more pleased with the quality of this stuff. It's pretty cool. I got the player's handbook, the Castle Keeper's Guide. I got a little adventure called the Hollowed Ring, um, DM screen, and big monsters and treasure book as well to start off adventuring stuff in this system, this role playing game system, which is, of course, very based on Dungeons and Dragons, but also unique in its own way. And I've been reading through the Castle Keeper's Guide, and I've been enjoying what I've been reading in there. It's really taking me back to those old days in D&D, the old Gary Gygax books, the old first edition, mostly Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And so I'm enjoying reading those as well. And yeah, so let's get on to what I am reading right now. Right now, I am back into my Malazan reread, and I am on Blood and Bone by Ian Esselmont. But 4 chapters in or so, and I'm enjoying this immensely. This is a fantastic book in the Malazan verse, and don't pass it up. It's really great. I'm enjoying the whole atmosphere in that book because it's a jungle atmosphere, and Esselmont really brings that to the fore very well in that novel. So I'm also reading The Wind Up Girl by Paolo Bacigalupi. And this is part of our read along on Speculative Speculations. We've done one episode on the first 6 chapters, and I'm moving into the next 6 chapters now, and we do that about once a week, about 6 or 7 chapters a week, and this is a very interesting setup here. It's like a few hundred years into the future, and it takes place in Thailand, and it's a new kingdom at this point in time, and it's really a down and dirty on the ground what's happening in society to regular people, and it's quite fascinating how that he envisions this really quite grim future where resources are very scarce, and so it's quite interesting. I really I'm enjoying getting into it. There's a lot of terminology in there you gotta get used to, but once you do, it's fascinating how it's playing about. All right, uh, I am also reading Stand on Zanzibar, and so far, uh, eh, not really getting into this one at all. It's been quite the challenge to try to get into this book. None of the characters stand out. It's told in this weird structural style that is broken up in a manner that does not lend itself to consistency or immersion at all. And so, having a tough time with this one. I'm going to see how it goes. Continuing on about 140 pages in or so of 50. So but that's what's active right now. Those three novels. All right, and so what am I going to be reading in the upcoming month? I plan to start. I am going to read the second story in this collection of The Devil Delivered and Other Tales. That second story being called Revolvo, I believe. Um, Yes, it's called Revolvo. Yeah. So I'm going to read that and hopefully have a discussion on that second story. Um, and then with for my short fiction side hustle. And so then I am going to be eventually starting American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. Not the greatest cover in the world, but yeah, whatever. Going to start reading this sometime in this month. So that's upcoming, and I think that's everything. Yeah, we'll call it that. And with that all being said, let me know what you're up to for this month, and what you're reading, and what you've read, and any interesting correlations with what I've done here. That'd be cool. And like I always say, please be good to each other.